So shock, everybody. Nancy Pelosi was pressured into flipping her position on a stock trade ban for Congress. Take a look at this. Here's a look at the support for banning Congress members from stock trading by poll. Data for Progress, 74%. Fox, 70%. Morning Consult, 63%. So this is, needless to say, a very popular issue here. Huge chunk of the country says, of course you should ban it. Pelosi now says she's open to banning stock trades by members of Congress. This is in Market Watch. House Speaker had previously argued that lawmakers should be able to participate in the free market economy. Now she says she's open to it. Her quote is hilarious. Let me pull that up for you. She said, "I have great confidence in the integrity of my members. They are remarkable. So when people talk about, well, somebody might do this and somebody, I trust our members." Pelosi told reporters at her weekly press conference on Capitol Hill, quote, "To give a blanket attitude of we can't do this and we can't do that because we can't be trusted, I just don't buy into that. But if members want to do that, I'm okay with that." So in other words, she's like, look, I don't really see the problem with it. Like, we should be allowed to do it, but if they want to do it, okay, fine, I guess. Really? You don't see a problem with it? Let me explain to you why you don't see a problem with it. You don't see a problem with it because your husband has made millions of dollars in the stock market based on whatever information you're giving him. Shock, you always beat the market. Other members of Congress always beat the market. There was just a report on this from Unusual Whales. You guys always beat the market. Now, are you just phenomenal investors, or do you have inside information so that you know what's going to happen? I'll give you one example. There was all this talk about antitrust as it applies to, I think it was Google. Was it Google? I think it was Google. Yeah. And so there was some committee hearing on this, and there was some legislation that was being floated. And as soon as Nancy Pelosi learned, okay, or even crafted it so that, well, this is really toothless what we're talking about here. This particular antitrust measure that we're looking at, it's toothless. She told her husband that. Her husband bought a lot of stock in Google. And then as soon as the rest of the country learned, hey, that's toothless, as was reported in the media, Google stock went up. So they got in when it was lower, knowing it would go up, and then it went up. That's just one example of how Nancy Pelosi's husband beats the market and how other people in Congress beat the market. And, I mean, this is, it's insane it's not already illegal. These are people who vote directly on our laws and what they should be. And they have massive conflicts of interest, obvious conflicts of interest. So they're not going to make decisions that are for the improvement of society and the American people. They're making decisions that impact their bottom line. And it's not just that, by the way. I mean, this is a clear, egregious example of self-dealing. But you also have, of course, as you all know, because of campaign contributions and the like, they vote in a way that serves their donors, serves their corporate donors, serves the billionaires. So this is what Congress does. And this is an area, again, you want to talk about bipartisan agreement. This is bipartisanship I can get behind. What you find is when you poll the American public, there's often bipartisan agreement on issues. Often. But usually the bipartisanship that's in Washington, D.C. is bad bipartisanship because it's like bipartisan agreement to deregulate Wall Street more, bipartisan agreement to start a new war. But the people generally have positive bipartisan beliefs. This is one of them. And so you had John Ossoff snubbed Pelosi in releasing this legislation. You also have Josh Hawley proposed similar legislation, although it's different. I think Hawley's doesn't have nearly as much teeth as the Ossoff bill, so Ossoff's is better. But I hope something gets done on this because, again, there's so many things that are legal that obviously shouldn't be legal. And you have to drag Nancy Pelosi kicking and screaming to that position, which leads to my final point, though, which is I'm sure they're working on the loopholes, baby. I'm sure they're crafting loopholes where they can still get away with making money off their insider information because they're crooks and they're criminals. And just because the guys are dressed all wearing suits and ties and all serious and the women are looking all professional and whatnot doesn't mean that they're not thugs. And they do thug shit all the time. This is a great example of it. And I guarantee you that whatever legislation ends up passing is going to have a tremendous number of loopholes. I hope I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to come out here and admit that I'm wrong, as you all know. We shall see. But it's positive she was dragged to the right position. We just have to keep a close eye on it from here. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.